Okay, well, welcome everybody. Let's see here. How's everybody doing? I need like a sound off or like jazz hand, yeah, at least like Christian, right?
Fine, fine.
Who can be on camera. All right. Trying to get you guys amped, all right? That's my job. I'm like emceeing this thing. So, yeah. Welcome MVJ members to the first of journalist development series. The topic this month is entrepreneurship in journalism. And we have with us experienced entrepreneurial coaches, Christian Fahrenbach. Am I saying that right, Christian? All right. And
Yes.
Joan Ramirez. So welcome, Christian and Joan. Thank you for joining us. And so we're gonna go ahead and dive right in, and Joan is going to be presenting first. So I'll just tell you a little bit about her before I let her take the floor from me. Joan is an award-winning photojournalist, author, and entrepreneurial coach with a wealth of experience in corporate communications, ESL teaching, and professional training. She's published works like Jamie is Autistic in Spanish and English, Go For It Leadership Handbook, and The Right Rules, a business communication guide now featured in the London Consortium of Libraries. With over 30 years of expertise, Joan has trained professionals worldwide and continues to inspire through her webinars, podcasts, and writing. Please join me in welcoming Joan Ramirez. Thanks for being here, Joan.
Thank you. And I think you said,
Did I mess something up?
wonderful.
All right.
Ethan, you get a round of applause before it's even started. How do you like that?
Love it.
I love it too. Okay, how to become an entrepreneur. I must preface my conversation my comments by saying I still am a journalist. It was my first love, but unfortunately, a lot of the newspapers in the country are closing. So I've done a lot of things along the way, but journalism is the epitome of what life is all about, or was for me. All right. Even if you only have one book, in today's world, an author needs to toot her horn. So whether you're an author or whether you have aspirations of going into business for a product or a service, these rules apply. I published The Right Rules, and I should hold this up so that everyone can see that the book does exist. At the inception of COVID, I worked in corporate communications for most of my career, so I got to thinking about the writing course I taught on a monthly basis to engineers, architects, technical and administrative staff in a multi-billion-dollar firm. I loved it. I'm also a 9/11 survivor, and if the building hadn't come down, I would have been there to this day, but unfortunately, that's life. When the handbook first came out, I geared it toward these individuals. Now I'm giving podcasts, interviews, and webinars to individuals from all professions because you get to a point in life, like me, where you have to decide what you want to do. You can either stay in a traditional company or you can go out on your own, or in addition to that, become an ESL teacher and a freelance journalist. I take a lot of vitamins. Find a competent accountant. These are a lot of the things that people don't tell you. They say, oh, go into your own business. They don't tell you how, and then you're going to make a fortune. It's really not the way it is in the real world. Find a competent accountant whom you can trust. I was advised to do an LLC. Truly, oh, and by the way, everyone's going to get a copy of the handouts. I have those for you. So don't worry. You don't have to take copious notes. Truly the best advice ever, no matter what genre your book is. And I originally geared this toward authors, but also your service product. You need to ensure that when you speak in person or online, your rights as an author are protected. Now I teach, but I also write fiction and nonfiction. So for the most part, people have been favorable toward my work. However, a mentor wrote a novel that a reader poked holes in. This can also apply when you are representing your company or you're new and you're representing something that you believe in. Always do your homework, due diligence, and make sure that what you're saying is a fact. It's accurate. It is crucial. I'm working on a novel now, and it took me all day just to get one line right in the book. It's very important because people say things, they assume they know things. If you're going into engineering, if you're going into even if just an accountant, and I don't say that lightly because I adore my accountant, he's great. My mentor is now an LLC because, like me, she promotes on several mediums. Um, I have a very dear colleague, and she had a historical glitch in the book. It was a true fact, but she was pushed against the wall because the reader didn't agree with it. And unfortunately, she's not Ernest Hemingway. So there was no way that she could not substantiate. She did. But as journalists, we know we always have to verify our facts, either by going to primary sources or secondary sources. So my meaning in this is please verify everything you say, everything you do, especially when you are in your own business. And the bottom line depends upon your verisimilitude or your accuracy. In the world of publishing, an ounce of protection is worth more than a pound of cure. So you're getting more than a little intro into what it's like in novel writing and in the world of literary endeavors. How to present your company in writing. Create a letter and later a proposal that include these items. Who you on your team, or maybe just you. The description of the project and the name of the book, mention your genre, mention your industry. Why the reason you wrote the book and the benefits to the reader. Is it for information, entertainment, inspiration? If you're selling widgets, the best widget you possibly can make. If you're selling a service, be very precise in what you are offering so you don't confuse your future prospects. When the release date of the book and where you're speaking, or when you're going to be speaking, uh, if you're in multiple mediums, Facebook, if you're going to be on LinkedIn, wherever you are, make sure that you give that information. Social media, your website, that's a whole nother webinar. But after the LLC, I would strongly, strongly, strongly urge you to think about a website. I had a website. I didn't even have the book. I just had a hope and a prayer of publishing. I also had a lot of things that were going on while I was affiliated with my former job, because when the towers came down, I was still working there. So I was doing two things, finishing up with my old world and going into my new. Book clubs don't pertain to all of you, but certainly websites and social media do. And how can the reader keep in touch with you? Mailing lists are crucial. Make sure that you have a mailing list. Make sure that when you take emails, the emails are accurate. I wouldn't right now worry about phones. I think it's a little bit intrusive. Would hold off on phones until much later on. Follow up for pitch emails. I said pitch emails, not phone. Confirm the emails so they don't bounce. Wait at least a week to follow up, and be sure to get the best time to call for the cell and the business phone. You don't call somebody early in the morning when they're racing out the door to get to work. You don't call someone when they've just come home from work. Best thing is to email and find out. Even with an email, it's like a phone call to find out. I've had people email me I usually try and work till 9, but I've had people email when I'm just about to get off. It depends upon your situation. A lot of people have families, so that isn't the best thing. Offer a sweetener. You can talk to their colleagues in group webinars with a discount if they buy your book and mention of your positive reviews on your website. But also, if you are going to do a webinar with quite a few people, you can give the discount. And you can always sweeten it with something, maybe a sample of your product or a demo. So there's all ways of bringing in prospects, but you have to size up your audience. You have to gauge your audience. Note I said positive, screen all feedback. When I first went into publishing, I got a lukewarm review. And the same thing happened to a colleague of mine, and she got on social media and she found the person's email and she took them to task. I thanked the person for the review and I said that I promised in the next book and in the next marketing pitch, because I also am promoting a service with my company, uh, JL Regan Enterprises, I said that I would take her comments into consideration and I would do even more. So always be positive and never be angry. If you want to be angry, the place to do that is the gym. Uh, a sample pitch email. But this can also apply to your company. It's just the wording. As an author, how often have you thought about opening your own enterprise? Or as a prospective business owner, how often have you thought of transitioning from a company to your own enterprise? What is holding you back? Lack of time, funding, or family obligations? Join the movement that has motivated many individuals to incorporate opening their own enterprise. At a mutually convenient time, I'd love to speak with you for no more than 15 minutes about my handbook, The Right Rules and Entrepreneurship. I know what you're thinking. Why should I hire you? What can you do to help me? Please take a look at my website and you insert yours there. I welcome all your questions. Thank you for taking the time to read this email. So this is a way, after you have met the prospect, you've done it in person, hopefully, or you've emailed them your business card. This is a good follow-up. And today, everything is done over the web. I'm a dinosaur. In my day, everything was done in person. Nothing was done online, which is better. It was much better because you could look into somebody's eyes. You could see their reaction. It's very hard to do that over the transom. But this letter I have found to be very, very, very good because it's simple. And I wouldn't even say thank you for taking the time to read this. I know what somebody said, please hire me. I don't think I would put that in. It's desperation never really got anyone anywhere. How to give a verbal presentation. I teach English as a second language. I deal with many people who are here from foreign countries, a few that are coming. Pronunciation is key for doing business American style. Write your talk in bullets. Only the key items about your novels, nonfiction, any publications, or anything you've done in the past, anything that's in your resume that you'd like someone to know in order to make a decision between hiring me, you, or someone else. Use index cards for notes. I'll never forget, I gave a presentation and I sat down, and the person that came after me was fumbling. And she had all these notes. She took the paper clip off and everything scattered all over the room. It's much easier when you're speaking in front of an audience, to use the index cards because they're a quick reference. Great posture, a simple business ensemble, and a clear voice. Nothing fancy. Everything very, very, very businesslike. Don't fidget or grip the podium. That's for in person, but the way you sit. I had someone I was watching. She's a very, very, very good trainer, but she was she was nervous, and I would think it would make the people who were looking nervous. Be enthusiastic about your subject matter. I've been speaking since I'm a kid. I started working very young, and I'm very used to speaking to different audiences. So be open to questions, but remember, there are certain things you don't have to answer. If questions you feel are too probing, There's always a way of saying, well, if you'll give me your business card, if you'll send me your email, your cell phone, I'd be glad to discuss that with you in a different forum. But the main thing is just to be succinct and have all your ideas. Verbal presentation follow-ups. At the back of the room or where you sell your books or where you're marketing your company or where you're marketing your service, whatever, have a sign-up sheet and business cards. I never go anywhere without a sign-up sheet because that's how you develop a mailing list. And if you don't have a mailing list, it's very hard to keep in touch with people if you add to your services. If I'm working on a new book, the only way people are going to know is if they can get in touch with me. Make sure attendees leave their emails and their numbers, and make sure that you understand them, that you can read them. All these things seem very simplistic, but when you want to develop a rapport between people, the worst thing to do is to misspell something. Swag, which is what you see here. It's up to you. In my field, it used to be strictly journalism. Now it's journalism and author, trainer. A bookmark is standard. Usually it's a business card, but more depends on your marketing budget. Everything you see there is wonderful, but it's costly. And you don't want to give something that is less than representative of your true talents. So it depends upon your budget. Closing the deal. The most important advice I can offer is to be persistent, but not a pest. I once had someone call me in the morning, call me in the afternoon, call me in the evening. Then I had another person who called me at the end of the week. I met him at a business networking event. That's the way it should be done. If you followed up in an email and with a phone call after a few weeks, let it go. You can't read minds. You don't know what's going on in that prospect's life. Before 9/11, you could pop into an office building and say you were in the neighborhood. You can't pop in anywhere now. You just can't. It's sad, but it's just the reality. So letters aren't as effective as they used to be. So unless you're planning a giveaway, I'd restrict yourself to email or phone calls in moderation. Before 9/11, you could actually go into a building and you could say, I'd like this letter to go with so-and-so, and they'd be only too glad. Now, I can't blame them because there's so many horrible things going on. Marketing. Network to the associations for your genre or for your product or for your service. I belong to a lot of literary associations. I belong to a lot of media associations. I was at a networking event a couple of months ago for a journalist, and I talked to someone overseas, and they were very interested in the right rules. Also, we were comparing notes about what's going on because as I said, I'm a dinosaur. I've been doing journalism for a long time now versus then. Attend writing conferences that you can afford. It will do you and your bank account more harm than good to go into debt. I remember when I first started out, I would give up vacations just to be able to go to a lot of conferences. You have to pinpoint, you have to be judicious. You cannot be all over all the time. Get on speaker panels for your genre. I do this. I also published a romance novel. I also published a children's novel. I teach. So I'm judicious in where I put my information, but don't limit yourself to one area. Marketing will depend on your budget. Don't go on a book tour that involves air and hotels if your credit cards will max out. Virtual book tours are an economical way to start. Virtual anything is wonderful. I was on Sunday, I went to an exhibit for a book that I'm working on, and I've already gotten a follow-up. They're interested in having me speak on an aspect of a novel I'm writing. So it depends, but you have to go out there and you have to be aggressive in your pursuit of your audience. But once you have your audience, the aggression stops. Also see what your local area has to offer. Promotion via your platform. Promote your skills by playing them up in your CV. For my children's books, I've spoken to school groups at libraries and joined children's writing associations. For my romance novel, I joined a related one, but since my romance novel is in German and French, it has taken off overseas. For journalism, there are so many, or there used to be. I'm not in it as much as I used to be now that I'm so involved with my novels and also my handbook. But for my writing handbook, I now am reaching out to individuals in the industry. And it's really been very, very, very rewarding. I have a historical suspense trilogy in progress. Yes, I've traveled overseas, but I also network. And I have found when I network, someone will refer me to someone else. Make a plan before you go and verify all names, emails, and addresses. I was in Krakow many years ago, and I actually had a list of 10 people because a day before I went, I got on the plane. The person I was supposed to see took sick. I got there. I was able not only to see someone else, but to see the head of an association. We're in touch to this day, and they're reading one of my books in one of the schools there. So trust me, I don't say anything unless I've actually experienced it. I wouldn't tell you things that I haven't done firsthand. Social media, too numerous to mention, but proceed with caution. Excuse me. When my handbook first came out, I plastered the internet with my press release. It didn't achieve the results I wanted. Now I let my website work for me as well as my Facebook page and Amazon. You cannot be all things to all people all over all the time. It's just too consuming. And after a while, it becomes more like again, I'm a dinosaur. There used to be on Broadway someone who would advertise the plays. He would go back and forth with a poster. And that isn't done anymore, but that's what I liken it to. Someone who knocks on the door and says, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. It's just a little bit too much. Uh, this is the checklist, which you're going to get. Be clear and concise in your verbal and written presentations. Write in short sentences. You're telling prospective readers, fans about your novels, not writing one. Use an active voice in all communications. Joan just signed her new contract and is overjoyed, as opposed to the contract was signed by Joan. These may seem like simplistic things, but when you are in touch with people and you're following up and you want their business, you want to do things that will not only get their attention, but help them with their clients. Be clear and concise. If the prospective clients want more information, they'll email you. Remember what I said about use index cards and bullets. Speak to your audience, not at them. Ask them what they need to get their business up and running in a round robin session where they talk to their seatmate, compare notes, and then Joan will give guidance. Also, it's very good to engage the audience, whether it is online or in person. I'm so used to doing it in person that online is, I find, rather cold and impersonal sometimes because people are a little reticent. If you're in person, it's a warmer atmosphere. But either way, get people to speak and find out what they need. Here, of course, I'm presenting my PowerPoint, but when you're in a business environment and you're presenting what you have to offer, it's very important to give people their say. Accent issues. I do a lot with accent reduction. Record your presentation and listen to how you pronounce words. If there are any issues, practice in front of a mirror for posture, presentation, and poise. I mean, I speak several languages. I've done this for things other than English. Marketing. If you are comfortable writing your own press release, go for it. If not, go online for a professional in the field and verify to ensure credibility. I've done tons of press releases, and they're not only for books, they're for a lot of other things. But you have to feel comfortable. Also, again, you don't want to have to take out a mortgage, and things are rather costly today. When I started out, they were pittance. Newsletters and blogs. Please wait until you have a few books or you have your company going before you invest in newsletters and blogs because they're time consuming. And you want to make sure that you have an audience that can't wait to get everything every month. Networking. Like minds succeed, so be certain to choose what is in your genre or industry. The same for social media, and always give a contact email. I love Broadway, but I wouldn't go into the theater district and hand out my flyers to people coming out of a play. If I was an actor or if I was a singer or a dancer, I'd probably flit down the alley. But you don't want to hear me sing anyway. I'll empty the theater in 5 seconds. Follow-up procedure. Give the prospect a chance to get back to you. Wait a week and then follow up, but don't get discouraged if it takes a bit longer. It's online and people get a lot of messages. Remember the wheels, well, this is for those in publishing and even journalism. It's not what it used to be. Schedule mutually convenient meetings to lessen anxiety, meaning you look at your calendar, the other person looks, and you come to a mutually agreeable time. You don't start off with saying, well, I can only do this then. You want the business, so you have to accommodate. Leave your temper at the door, nobody, no matter what. Mind your manners in public. I had someone who I was sitting next to who got so annoyed that they just, I don't even want to go there. Just when you're angry, you go home and you bang the wall. Hydrate. Always bring a bottle of water. This is common sense, but it's something that's important. Oh, right. And you'll get this in the handouts, my contact information. For the right rules, which I'm very happy to say I've been giving a lot of webinars, I've been giving a lot of podcasts, and also my company. So I can tailor a plan of action that is uniquely you, but that I leave up to you completely. I don't push anything. It's just not a good idea. Thank you. Do we have time for questions?
We do indeed have time for questions. So if anyone has questions, if you would like to just unmute, or you can do the raise your hand emoji, or however you would like to do that. And if nobody has some questions, I have a few or a couple prepared here. So
Sure.
anyone?
Either I did a very good job and you're overwhelmed, or
Well, listen, I'm gonna go ahead and jump into the ones I have, and if anybody else has one, just raise your hand in the chat, or whatever the correct terminology is there. But thank you for that, Joan. It was very thorough, and you covered a lot of things that I think a lot of things that I definitely would have been useful to me when I was first starting out. Let's see here. What are the biggest challenges journalists face when starting their own ventures, and how can they overcome them? Like, what would you, if you had to like nail down, like, to someone who's just getting into this entrepreneurial path, like what would you advise them to primarily to avoid the pitfalls of, or look out for?
well, the 5 W's, the who, what, when, where, why, and how, they're really not 5 W's. Translate them. And don't think like a journalist unless you're going into business and you're going to incorporate and you're going to start your own newspaper. I find that even for me, when I started writing books, it wasn't the writing of the books because I have a vivid imagination. It was the fear that I wouldn't be clear and concise. So even though you are a journalist, when you are presenting your credentials and you have you want to transition either into a company or you want to take your show on the road, remember, you have to grab the reader's attention. Where's Papa going with that axe? Now, the other way of saying is, I'm a journalist and I wrote for a lot of industries I wrote for a lot of food industries. So I can tell you the difference between a cut of beef or a filet mignon or, how to open a restaurant. Do something different. Do something to grab people's attention. Not just, I'm Joan Ramirez, this is my email, this is my contact information, this is what I know. Because if you're going to be in your own business, you have to draw people in. And if Charlotte's Web had been written the second way, the man wouldn't have had as many people reading. It's a shame. He was a genius that he did. If you'd done that today, he would have been a billionaire. But draw people in. Draw people into your world.
Outstanding. Thank you for that answer. So I've got somebody, let's see, Brave Knight, put in the chat. I'm trying to figure out how to reach our market without spending too much. And I'm wondering if whoever Brave Knight is could unmute and maybe kind of clarify what you mean by that.
Well, any enterprise, it depends upon your budget. When I was in corporate, I made a very nice salary. Now I can't go flying off to parts unknown. I'm even very careful when I travel in this country. Now, thank God for me, they have virtual book tours and they also have virtual everything where you can get online and you can present your platform. You can present what you have to offer. So it really depends upon your budget. You have to think of, if you're an author, how many books can you ship ahead of time? How many people are going to be in the audience? How many people are actually going to buy, or they're just going to leaf through it if it's in person? If it's online, something like simply holding up the book and giving them your information. So it really all depends on what you are prepared to put out in the way of budget in order to get back and what you're going to reap from the benefits. How many books do I have to sell to make such a profit for that day? How many books do I have to sell over the course of a week, over a month, over a year? How many webinars do I have to give? And also, if you're not going to donate a book, if you're going to donate a service, if you're going to give a freebie, how often can I do that until I really build up my client list? I have a friend that spent 2 years just doing goodwill. He now is thinking of incorporating, but he is charging. He wasn't charging because he had someone helping him. That helping hand is gone. So he's doing it on a sliding scale. But you don't want to slide into oblivion. So you have to look and see what the market for your particular industry, your particular product will bear. And I know that there are those resources online. I know they're for publishing. I know they're for freelance journalists. So all you have to do is look and type that in.
Type what in?
Yes, please. That do we refer to you as Brave Knight? Is that?
Oh yeah, that's we're Brave Knight writers, my husband and I.
Can you kind of unpack what is that like a blog, like a
Okay.
Substack, like?
So we have a blog, we have a website, but really what we have is like 7 novels, and we just put out a cookbook, and we have a nonfiction book, and I'm working on devotionals, but the majority of our books would be targeted toward truck drivers, I think, might be interested in them. And so we made them all into audiobooks, and we've tried some Amazon promotions, and we sell nothing. And good reviews. It's like, I know they're not horrible books. We've had professional editors, professional cover creators, but we just can't seem to gain any traction.
And so when you're asking about without spending too much, what like I guess advertising vehicles have you explored or considered?
We give out free books if anyone signs up for our website. We've tried that. We tried the different Amazon things where you can, Amazon ads and things like that. So I'm really kind of out of ideas. Marketing is not my thing at all.
Joan, do you have advice there?
Well, for cooking, I mean, it's so popular now. What you could do is maybe you could make up in your area little flyers and put it in the form of a utensil and put something clever on the front. And when they open it up, just tell them what you have to offer and then wait maybe a week or so and follow up.
Writing that down.
I think
That's
didn't you say that you were writing like novels, is like fantasy novels?
yeah. No, novels that are like adventure novels, sort of like a guy goes off to St. Croix or goes down into the Grand Canyon or something like that.
I
Okay.
apologize. I thought you said cookbooks. I don't
There's
know
one
where.
cookbook.
Pardon
We
me?
have There is one cookbook, and I will use that idea. I appreciate that. That'll get me thinking.
Yeah, I mean, online there are so many fantasy. Fantasy is very big now, especially for YA young adult. So get someone who is into graphics to put something together, even an envelope that opens up. I know they do that on these greeting card things, and you have a message inside.
Okay.
I would add, uh, obviously marketing, if you're going to pay for advertisements, and you're gonna like pay to find your readers, make sure that you're targeting the right demographics. Like who are your readers primarily, right? Like if you're writing romance novels, primarily your audience is women, right? Things like that. So if your primary demographic for your adventure books are, say, middle-aged men or young adult men or whatever the demographic is, then go advertise and market in places where your readers are and try to reach them there.
Okay. That's good advice. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. We have some others in the chat. Cyrus, I don't know that Joan is the best person to answer this question, and because what Cyrus wrote here is, how can military journalists combat propaganda from adversaries like Russia and China? And before you answer, Joan, if you would like to answer, I would just say my first response to when I saw that was like, the way you combat propaganda or lies or mistruths of any sort is you seek the truth and report it, right? So the formula remains the same. The primary fundamental thing remains the same. If you really want to get into countering propaganda, then you may be more interested in counterintelligence than being a journalist. So that would be my take on that. But also, Cyrus, I would love for you to unmute, and if you want to unpack this topic further, we can.
So
Hi.
much,
Yeah, I'm just yeah, I was just asking a question. Go ahead, John.
so many marvelous books have been written on this. So maybe channel your energies into an espionage or a spy novel or something like that. And then you can give a foreword and you can give an afterword, and there you'd be able legitimately, but tactfully and carefully to express your sentiments.
Yeah, and I'll just if you want to, if you're primarily interested in journalism and producing journalism, then obviously go report on those topics, right? So go fact find and truth seek and report on those topics and cultivate your sources. And maybe you have that already, maybe you have that expertise. So why don't you go ahead and share with us, Cyrus, like where you're coming from on this?
Right now I have West Coast Mo blogger. So I got the name because when the invasion in 2022 started, they had mill bloggers, Russian mill bloggers. So I copied mill blogger, because and I'm West Coast, mostly, Oregon, Washington, California. But now there are Z bloggers, and I did write a movie called Z Dead. So, I have been kind of like, following the war, and like, like on my last show, even I kind of like did a rebuttal to their foreign minister about using prison labor to fight forest fires and stuff like that. So, I found that there's information that gets like, because I use Creative Commons articles because they're easier, I can use them for free. It's not like I can't get an AP license for my blog or whatever. So, by using Creative Commons, you end up using Iran state media and Russian news organizations are like the primary sources you end up working with. And so I've been, I kind of like changed it around a little bit, try to, uh, like with the article about prison labor, it was pretty obvious that, they're using political prisoners and are forcing them into dangerous situations against their will. Whereas, in California, they were using, volunteers from prisons, for misdemeanors and stuff like that. So, I have been trying, on that angle and working on that, but I was just thinking maybe there was something more that I could do or something else, some other kind of thing to look into. I mean, I like your idea about, trying to write a book and with a full word, some kind of espionage book. That's pretty good. So I was just trying to see if there's any other things to look into out there to do. I found that YouTube for me seems to work the best. I just keep going on that, but I haven't gotten a lot of followers yet. I've been trying to like, get the word out more, and you can do like advertisements on YouTube and stuff like that. And I found that pretty effective. But it's difficult to get people to come back, and then, I mean, there is like regular news, but like here where I'm at, in Oregon, it's Southern Oregon, we lost a lot of our local news
Yeah.
coverage. So,
Sorry, I'm gonna jump in just because we're kind of coming up on time. I think we got the gist of what you're looking for, and
okay.
what you were just touching on, kind of the the constant contraction of the news industry and news deserts and everything. That's that's something that I don't think is going to stop necessarily. The latest report from the Medill School this past year on the state of news, it was pretty disheartening in a lot of ways with regard to those news deserts and places closing. But there was some heartening trends, like digital, like a lot of what we call legacy publications or print publications shuttered, and that's that continues to happen with newspapers and local publications. But at the same time, there wasn't necessarily a net plus, but there was a lot of digital publications that came up simultaneously. So it's there's no perfect answers. Anyone who's been in journalism for the past couple of decades, like I have my entire career, it's the digital disruption never ends. It's a constantly moving target with the business model, and I think what we're talking about here today, obviously with entrepreneurial journalism, and it sounds like what you're doing is the way you kind of make this model work, or the way the media, our media landscape is evolving, is that there's going to be a lot more. I hope that there will continue to be this growth and plurality of voices because so many of us are going the independent route, right? So to some extent, we're trying to like undermine that massive media conglomerate consolidation model. But there's all of it is, like I said, a constantly moving target and a big challenge. So I would say to everyone, keep seeking the truth, right? Keep being a tireless skeptic and reporter. And if someone tells you the sky is blue, go get a second source. And just keep doing what journalists do. With that, I'm going to transition because we're trying to keep on schedule. So we're going to transition to Christian's presentation. I'm going to say to Joan, thank you so much for
Thank you.
that wonderful presentation and your insights and experience. And yeah, we'll move to let me introduce Mr. Fahrenbach. Give me 1 second to play you on, Christian. All right. let's see here. So we're going to dive into another perspective on journalism and audience engagement with Christian Fahrenbach. Christian is a journalist and educator based in New York City and Germany, a founding member of, I'm scared to say this, please correct me if I say it wrong, a founding member of Kraut Reporter, Germany's largest
Yes.
crowdfunded media project. Christian has written more than 2,000 issues of their award-nominated newsletter, Morgen Post. Christian frequently contributes to top German publications and is a sought-after expert on American politics. He also teaches audience engagement and membership models at German universities and mentors fellows at CUNY's, or SUNY's, whichever you prefer, Entrepreneurial Journalism Program and the International Center for Journalism. Welcome, Christian. Thank you so much for being here, and I will let you take the floor.
Yes, thank you very much. Very happy to be here, and probably to hopefully to also be able to add one or two perspectives in tonight's webinar. And maybe we can come up with like one or two little ideas or hooks that will keep you thinking about how to start your own venture in journalism, or probably how you can improve on the one that you're having. Just because the questions came up, I would just like to add two more things to the questions that were already there. Once in terms of the number one, in terms of how can we fight something as big as propaganda, I think it's also always important to remind us that the best thing that we can do is probably like to build bridges on which people can come back to us, and to try to look for a non-judgmental tone, because usually my experience in journalism, no one ever changes their opinion on the spot. If you talk to someone, no one is ever going to be like, oh yeah, you were so right about this. But the best thing you can do is that you come up with an attitude that leaves the door open for the other person, so much so that in 3 weeks' time, they can come back and say, you know what, the one thing you said, it got me thinking. And then you can like gloat inside a bit, and then you can work from there. And the other one, because it also came up a bit, I will also talk about it a bit in my presentation, is I think it's often very, very helpful for us to remember that we do not have to build all of our audiences ourselves, because most of the time the communities are already meeting somewhere. And it's a good way for us, if we want to grow our audiences, to just go where the communities already are. So I picked it up, I think it was about like truckers, for example. Why not go to a specific rest stop where they already are and just set a goal of, okay, today I'm going to meet 5 of them, learn about their information behavior, learn what it is about the offering that I have that they might be interested in, and then probably also like change your product here or there a little bit, because as journalists or as journalistic entrepreneurs, I think it's one of the hardest things, but also one of the things we definitely need to do, is to kind of let the audience decide what our product should be. And with that said, I will also now share my screen and look for the little PowerPoint. I have so many open tabs, that's really bad. So there we are. Okay. Yeah. Okay, you should see the PowerPoint, right? Ethan, can you give me a thumbs up?
You're good.
Yeah, okay.
I see it.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. So first, to get us a bit more in the mood, I wanted to give you like 5 impulses of what I've learned since I moved to the US, or since I moved to New York, especially to start a program or start being a part of a program in entrepreneurial journalism. That was 2014. So in order to encourage you a bit, number one, very important, I think, and that really was a big change of mind shift for me. A big mind shift for me was, it's not about the idea, it's always about the execution. If some of you know these people, these are the Winklevoss twins, who claim to this day that they started Facebook. There's a whole movie about it, the Social Network movie. And in that movie, the Mark Zuckerberg character has a line saying, yeah, but I did it. You might have had the idea, but I did it. And also, I think there's also freedom in actually realizing that the idea is not the most important thing of what we do. It's always our execution and what we bring to the table that is specific about it, because so often we have this inner censor saying, oh, I really wanted to do this, but someone else is already doing it. But throw this out, because someone else is already doing it. With this kind of arguing, no one would ever open a new pizza place or an ice cream place, because they're existing, but it's your specific pizza that people will like. So get started. And with get started, Joan also said it. There are now so many different tools that will help you to get started even before you're ready. So I put LaunchRock in here, for example, because Joan also was talking about the importance of collecting email addresses. We now see with the discussions that are going on about Twitter/X or maybe Meta right now that whenever we live too much in these ecosystems of social media, there's a platform risk, and we chain ourselves to them, probably in our distribution of our content. But really, one of the most resistant things in the last couple of decades has been our own email lists. They travel with us, and whenever you have an email list, great. So start collecting emails already. LaunchRock is a way that is a site that allows you to come up with like a very first website for your project, for example, and where you can say, okay, I'm not ready yet, but if you want to, please hop on my mailing list. Number three, you don't have to be perfect when you're starting in journalism. This is one of the first versions of Amazon. It's a bit unfair because now it's also like 30 years old, I guess. But it also just goes to show like this does not look great. And so the lesson here is if you're not embarrassed by how it looks in the beginning, then you were waiting too long to launch. So it's fine, get it started, because also like, sure, don't do typos on purpose, but if there's 2 typos in your newsletter this week, then do just 1 next week and then 0 the week after. But it's really, really important, I think, to get yourself out there the same way as it is important when you are in a creative process, for example, like writing or writing a book, that, you know, like you have to come up with this idea of like an imperfect or a shitty first draft, because you can never edit a blank page. Lesson number 4, pivot. So be flexible in changing what your idea is. This here is a screenshot of something that was called Wave from Google. It didn't really work. The idea was like to have everything that people who work together or probably are friends in one place. But when you look at it, and if some of you work, for example, with Slack, this does not look too far from Slack. But Google, for example, also took parts of the middle section with the inbox, and that is still kind of recognizable. And Google has been a company that, for example, was looking into glasses, is doing medical devices. I mean, now it's also YouTube, etc. So it's really, when you get on this entrepreneurial journey, really be in the mood of like willing to adapt your idea, whatever it is that you get as a feedback from the audience and from the market. And number 5, don't do it all alone, or at least think internally inside your head that of the fact that you need different personalities if you want to start your own endeavor. One of the short formulas that I once heard was you always need a hipster, a hacker, and a hustler, meaning you need a person who has like the design mindset enough and an understanding of how things look pretty or sound pretty. Doesn't necessarily have to be like an actual designer in terms of graphic design, but could also be like the audio engineer for your podcast. Then you need a hacker. You need the hacker who takes the vision of the designer and is actually able to like hack it on the street, get it out there. And a hustler, meaning a person who's able to sell what it is that you want to do. Here, personified by Matthew McConaughey from Magic Mike, and doing the literal hustle in the movie. So that, just like as an impulse, maybe just like some things to chew on once the webinar is done. But let's say now you're in the mood to start something. You're wondering, okay, how should I tackle this? Starting anything is complicated. How can I keep track of all the different things that I need to do? Because there's now like, okay, there's all of Joan's ideas, and there's all of Christian ideas. There's all of the conflicting advice that you get from other people. So how can you organize this in a manageable way? One way to do this that a lot of startup companies use nowadays is a tool that helps you ask the right question, helps you to discuss them with the team, so much so that you don't forget anything, and gives you an easy overview. That tool is called the Business Model Canvas. I'm going to walk you through it. I put also a link here for how to use it. There's books about it. But the idea of the business model canvas is, as you can see, there are 9 puzzle pieces here. There are 3 to your left: key partners, key activities, key resources. That is basically, I'm going to start here. That is basically the backstage, everything that happens in your company. Then there are 4 to the right: value proposition, customer segments, customer relations, and channels, meaning what is it that you're offering? To whom are you offering it? What's the kind of vibe that you're having, the relationship you're having with your audience, and through which channels does your content or your product arrive at the audience? Very often in media, we see that people start with a channel because they say, I want a podcast, but a podcast is not the right way to start the idea. I think the right way to start an endeavor is, whom do I want to help? What do I want to promise this person? And then ask yourself, what is the best way to fulfill this promise? Because probably it's not a podcast. I will talk about that a bit later. And then at the bottom, you basically have the basis of it all: the cost, where does the money come from? Oh, revenue, where does the money come from? Cost, where does the money go to inside your business? In the presentation, here I have the questions and what the business model canvas that you can discuss with yourself or with your business partners. And it looks very unassuming, but it really allows for having important conversations, because you realize the people that you want to work with are probably not on the same page of what your business should be. And so the business model canvas is a way to have a good overview. Usually people put it on like a giant, like A1, A0, a giant poster, and then they work really with Post-its, and sometimes they even leave it up in the office, because that way you can get rid of a Post-it, put another Post-it there if you have a better idea, because also discussing this usually takes time. Here, don't get too frustrated. This is just a way to work through it. So starting with the customer segments and then the value propositions, which is also what I want to use the rest of my time for. Because I really want to encourage you when it comes to customer segments, the first part, and the question, who are your customers? How do you segment them? How do you identify new customers? How do you learn how they actually fulfill the information needs right now? And maybe even, do you have a specific person in mind when you create your content? I really want to encourage you to come up with a customer segment that is really, really small in the beginning, because that makes it more manageable. And if we think of very strong brands and brands that we admire, it's usually brands that start out rather small and then grow and add something. But you usually do one specific small thing for a specific group, right? And then you grow out of it, especially if you're just starting out. If you're asking yourselves, okay, how can I segment my customers? You can do it, for example, by age or income, or is it a rural audience? Do they live in the same state? Do they have the same hobby? Do they have probably the same issues in terms of like problems that they want to solve? And very often, my impression in media is, for example, that the customer segmentation is being done based on things that are not necessarily uniting a group, because the goal of your customer segment is to describe a group of people that would also see itself as a group with shared interest and as a group of people who are alike. And so very often in media, it was just like, okay, let's make news for young people. But a young person with a lot of money in New York City is very different from and probably who came to the city to study at Columbia, is very different from a person who grew up in rural Wyoming. It's still a young person. So my advice usually is to like really, really come up with like a very specific segment. And I leave that. I went over this in audio already. Once again, like the claim that I usually tell people is, it's better to be 9 people's favorite thing than to be 100 people's 9th favorite thing, because this is what will make them pay money for you. It's also a Broadway reference. I'm glad that Joan also talked about Broadway, but it's from a musical called Title of Show. So it's a nice song, and I very much believe in it, because also you need those strong relationships with the audience, especially in the beginning, to keep on going. And we are a bit worried to do that, to be so specific, because we are worried that we will leave money on the table. But if you ask yourself about your own media diet, I'm sure that some of your media diet, maybe even some of the things you pay for on Substack, for example, which is, or Patreon, which are sites that allow you to pay for specific content creators, are because you have this kind of parasocial relationship with that person and think, oh, this is a person that really adds value in a field that I care a lot about. And it's not like, okay, this is like the 10th general interest website that has an article about um, new policies in the military or whatever. But if you have this one guy who comes up with the new policies for naval bases in Europe, then you're like, oh, this is what I'm specifically caring about. And this is also where the money sits for you as a creator. One thing that also can help you if you are thinking about your customer base is to come up with what is called a persona. A persona means basically you come up with a fake person that you write for. It can also be a real person, but you really try to think about what this person's behavior is, what they are buying, how much money they are having, and how right now they are fulfilling the information need that you also probably want to fulfill for them. And the idea of that is that it really helps you when you create your content. So, for example, the newsletter that Ethan was talking about for the Crowd Reporter, which you said it perfectly, Ethan, but it's really like the bad wordplay is the founder's problem. It's not yours or mine, but it is a wordplay on being financed by the crowd, but also Germans being the crowd. It's, yeah. Anyway, it is what it is. But there for the newsletter, we have the persona that I have in mind is actually how would a morning briefing have to look like that my mother would read. And my mom is like so interested in news. She really wants to understand it, but she doesn't like to be talked down. She doesn't like specific politics lingo. She even, since I'm German, and she also lives in Germany. She even, I think, could not probably define what Congress is. So if I, as a journalist, write the US Congress did this or that, I'm losing people like her, which is stupid. And we can always say, yeah, sure, they should do their reading. But I mean, it's our job to explain it to them so much that it's helpful for them. So thinking about a persona like this is, for example, this is one of the, it's just like something from the internet where you can see how actual communication agencies approach this writing of the persona. They can really see, okay, you've really come up with a discussion for how does this person like look like and feel like. And then you also have internal conversations about, okay, is this an article that Jill Anderson would read, or don't we have a persona for that? And here I put this in for you to encourage you a bit how you can learn more about your audience. Like, where does your audience meet? I said this about the truckers in the beginning. Do they use phones? Do they use apps? Questionnaires, for example. One question that I think works really well if you want to find out what is important for your audience is to ask them, if I gave you $100 right now, what would you buy with that money? Because $100 is not a big amount, but it can tell you something about one of the most urgent things or the urgent needs that they have, maybe also 1,000. And you can also ask them, if in that community, if in that city, region, in your school, I would give you $10,000 right now, what should the school do with that? What should the city do with that? And then you get, because if you ask them, okay, how should the city spend their money on? They will always say something like, police or security or whatever, but you need to like tickle them a bit more so that they can come up with something specific. And then they might probably say, well, okay, I think there should be a volunteer program to get homeless people off the streets or something. Because if you ask them, how would you spend $10,000, then that's an amount of money that they have some kind of reference for, and they have an idea of what can actually be bought with it, and then they become a bit more specific. Yeah, and then other questions is like, where do you usually learn about news events, or probably like information about the specific topic that you want to tackle with your journalistic endeavor? And don't be afraid to just ask 5 people, and don't be afraid that it might not be fully representative of your whole audience, but just be happy that now you have 5 qualified answers that you did not have before you started that kind of research. It just helps you to get an idea of what it is that they want to learn. So now we talked about customer segments, the thing to the or I talked about the thing to the puzzle piece to the very right. Let's talk about the puzzle piece, the second most important one, I think, the one in the middle. What is our value proposition? And for that, I want to start with, it's just like 5 minutes, but I think it's really worth our time. I just need to switch the window. I want to give you a little video.
Program that's about integrating life's passions. Well, you start with why. Why?
You also hear the audio, right, Ethan? Yeah, okay, good.
And that kicks us off for the first speaker tonight, Simon Sinek, and his talk, Start with Why.
We assume even we know why we do what we do. But then how do you explain when things don't go as we assume? Or better, how do you explain when others are able to achieve things that seem to defy all of the assumptions? For example, why is Apple so innovative? Year after year after year after year, they're more innovative than all their competition. And yet they're just a computer company. They're just like everyone else. They have the same access to the same talent, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media. Then why is it that they seem to have something different? Why is it that Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement? He wasn't the only man who suffered in a pre-civil rights America, and he certainly wasn't the only great orator of the day. Why him? And why is it that the Wright brothers were able to figure out controlled powered manned flight when there were certainly other teams who were better qualified, better funded, and they didn't achieve powered manned flight, and the Wright brothers beat them to it? There's something else at play here. About 3.5 years ago, I made a discovery, and this discovery profoundly changed my view on how I thought the world worked, and it even profoundly changed the way in which I operate in it. As it turns out, there's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way.
One of the great challenges in this world is knowing enough about a subject to think you're right.
And it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe, in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was
And now it's still running on here. 1 second. I like to take some time for this because I think it's really such a fundamental way of shifting our thinking and starting to realize what he just said in the end. People don't buy what we do, they buy why we do it. But we are too afraid very often to lead with the cause that it is that actually drives us. And so for example, for me, in my case, it took me a very long time to actually not say, well, okay, I'm a journalist, I do newsletters, but also to sometimes introduce myself to people and say, everything I work on is supposed to make people less afraid. And I want to do that. I want them to be less afraid to start their own journalistic endeavor. I want them to be less afraid of the world. And this is how I probably do a different kind of journalism. And so, but you would not be very interested probably in just another newsletter. But if I tell you, oh, this is a newsletter that makes you less afraid, it's a different kind of hook. And usually for the morning briefing that I'm writing, I tell people, well, the Crowd Reporter morning briefing is a newsletter that helps you understand the news in a way that your colleagues can't embarrass you at the water cooler. And then people will be like, ah, yeah, I get it. This is like a good value proposition. So I have a summary here of Simon Sinek. He has written books about it now. You can watch the whole 20-minute TED Talk. But what does this mean now? I want to show you like a simple formula for how you can do it for your own endeavor. And this is just a basic sentence like this. We help the target audience, so like the very specific customer segment I was talking about, to do XYZ by so and so. So for example, we help young military families abroad to learn about free education opportunities online by sending them a weekly newsletter. And we help NGOs in our region to navigate New Jersey politics by organizing a monthly dinner in our newsroom. We help veterans in Denver to build an outdoor tourism business by offering classes and an event space to connect their community. And I put this weird picture of a car here because for these sentences, it is helpful to think of something that is aspirational for people, that makes people nod. And just like people do or companies do in marketing, you never see a car stuck in New York City traffic. You always see a car driving by a beautiful coast, because the goal of a value proposition like this or of advertising is, who would I be with this product? It's like by seeing Men's Health, like, I mean, Men's Health makes every month, Men's Health is the same. It's like how to get a six-pack in 10 minutes, how to have a lot of sex, how to probably eat better food. But the thing about Men's Health is when you buy it, you also buy the idea that you could be a person like the people that it's written about. So find a value proposition where when you try it with people, makes them nod and be like, oh yeah, this is something I would need. I would need news that is non-judgmental. I would like to be a part of the outdoor tourism business community. Thanks for connecting us. So the goal here is also like, okay, find a value proposition that is an answer for like, what would people want to be a part of? And one last impulse, and then I'm done, is because I started with those 5 impulses, and I want to give you one last one. It's up to no one to define what the goal of your new endeavor is. I mean, sure, there is money issues, etc., and different money needs also means that you have to approach the entrepreneurial business that you want to do in a different way. But I wanted to introduce you to this project here, Greyline. It was also a project at CUNY from another student there. He set out also with a specific community in the beginning. And this community that he said was, I want to serve incarcerated women that are less than a year away from being from coming out of prison. And I want to help them and improve their lives by improving the situation in the tri-state area prisons. And I want to write a blog about the living conditions in those prisons. So he started Greylined, and then he started talking to these women and asked them, what is your information need? How would your life be better in the prison? And those women told Alistair that, well, actually, right now I'm really worried about how I can find a job. Who is someone who's going to hire me when I come out of prison? Would I say in a job interview that I was incarcerated for the last couple of years? And so he decided, oh, okay. And they told him also a blog is of no use for us because we don't have internet here. And so he decided, okay, I have to pivot and I will do a twice a year a little magazine that goes to all tri-state area prisons for free and is just a job magazine. And then he decided that the metric that defines my success is not how much money I make with it, how much people are reading it, but the metric is I want to learn until the end of my university program that 5 women have read recommendations or gotten tips for how to behave in the job search when they come out of prison. And I want to learn of 5 women who tell me they learned something from the magazine I wrote. And then he pointed in his final presentation at university, he pointed to the final row, and there were 2, 4, 6, 8 women sitting and with like thank you balloons saying thank you for helping us in a situation where not many people were helping us. And this just goes to say for me that like no one's going like, I don't know, maybe it's the German in me. The Germans would be like, well, that's not journalism, that's activism what he did. But I would always be like, yeah, okay, how many jobs did you create? How many people did you actively help? And so the last thought I want to leave you with is it's up to no one to tell what a proper goal is. And even if it's just for like what looks like a small number of people, it's great if you make a difference. Thank you. That's all I got. Long on opinion, short on facts.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Kristen. Can we give like virtual or real like a round of applause there? That was great. Thank you. All right, thank you everyone. So there you covered a lot, and I've actually been blessed to go through the CUNY Entrepreneurial Journalism Creators Program. I don't think that I worked with you in that cohort, Christian, but I can confirm everyone that everything that Christian just covered, you guys just got like a free crash course in like the entire curriculum of like
It's all stolen. It's all
EJCP.
stolen. That you can confirm.
Yeah, he like crammed everything in there. So so definitely want to are you going to provide your presentation as well?
Sure.
Okay, so you guys will definitely want to refer back to that. I'll open it up for questions here in a second. I hope you guys have lots. Before I do that though, I just wanted to kind of there was for me there was a lot of like yes and like like jazz claps or whatever, and like a lot I was feeling a lot of what you were saying, especially in the beginning when you started with something I think that is so important in our current media landscape, which is to listen to other people, right? To listen to other people and to be tolerant of ideas that you don't understand and seek to understand them better. Ideas and perspectives. I think that I 100% agree that we file that under the umbrella of how do we save democracy and combat misinformation and propaganda from adversaries. So I just wanted to definitely echo that. Talk to people you disagree with, listen to them, and engage civilly and productively on ideas, as we once did as a nation a lot better than I think we do now.
An excellent question there. I learned from like a 70-year-old friend of mine who has very different opinions, but who was very gracious with me because I think I was always for him like the European lefty anyway and a lost cause. But he would always ask me when I gave him one of my opinions, he would always say, oh, that's interesting. How do you think you built this opinion? How do you think you formed this opinion? And I loved it so much because it really opens an opportunity to talk about something more profound than just like batting your head over some like facts that you learned somewhere, and learn actually something about the people or the other person you're talking to. And also very often I was like, you know what, actually, I don't know. I don't really know if I believe. I'm just like, I don't know where I got this opinion from. Probably I should rethink it. So I always love the question, like, okay, where do you think you built this? How do you think you built this opinion?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That is great. And the other thing that I wanted to echo, I mean, there's so much because, I remember so much of what you're teaching. But the big thing that I can speak to personally as a person who's been the majority of my professional career has been as a freelancer and I guess as an entrepreneur. And that's the part about launching when you're not perfect. I love that. I love that you showed that Amazon books page, from very early on. And, now of course Jeff Bezos and Amazon is this gargantuan, gazillion-dollar company and everything. I am the guy who is incredibly, for lack of a better word, OCD about my work, and I'm a perfectionist, and I'm one of those people who often suffers from perfectionist paralysis. So there's been many times in my career that I didn't complete something, or I didn't launch a project, or even try or iterate because of that. And I want to encourage everyone to not be like me and to just, because what the professionals will tell you is iterate, 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 like get yourself like a good enough product, right? That's like 80% there and launch. I mean, how many times have you seen like a massive company launch a video game that was all buggy, right? And everybody goes after them and then they fix it, right? It's like things like that. It's like sometimes you have to like, throw the warty thing that you're not feeling good about out into the world and let the public do what it do. And part of what they're going to do, yeah, people are going to savage you and criticize, but that's going to help you make it better, right? Or sometimes, and you also want to lean heavily. You can tell who your real friends are and who your real, people who want you to get better as a creator and a journalist, because they won't just tell you your stuff sucks. They'll tell you how to make it better, right? They'll say, "Hey, awesome, congratulations on launching the thing. Here's some things I noticed that maybe you could make better," right? And you want to gravitate to those people, right? Because in your head that your thing can be better, right? But if all somebody has to offer you is like, "Man, that really sucks. You should just quit." That person is not the person that you need to be listening to their critique. You need to be listening to that person who says, "I've been where you're at and I can help you." All right.
Yes. Pitch, don't bitch.
Pitch, don't bitch. Exactly. So with that, I'll shut up and give the floor back to you guys. And I hope you all have some questions. I see one hand. Karen, I'm going to let you go ahead and ask your question.
And I just wanted to say one thing, one like little reframing to what you said, not reframe of like to what you said, but just for your internal conversation. Sometimes being a bit embarrassed by what you launched just means you know a lot about it because you already know about the gap that like to like that is still like lacking from greatness. I mean, yeah, and then it's okay. Anyway, Karen.
It's
Good evening.
Karan. Hi.
Oh,
good
Karan,
evening.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
It must happen very
So
often.
much for joining us. I like the phrase done is better than perfect. I tell myself that all the time, that done is better than perfect. And sometimes you don't get better by not doing it. You get better by actually doing it. You were going to make a statement earlier and you stopped yourself about podcasting. I'm curious what that was.
Oh, I just said that very often I think we tend to come up with a channel first and try to find a solution or a need that fits to that channel, but probably sometimes the channel that we have in mind is probably not the best way to serve the audience's need in that moment. By that I meant that I've often been in newsrooms where someone says, okay, everyone now downloads the daily from the New York Times. We also need a daily. But that's probably not the right answer for a local newspaper in Germany. In order to reach new audiences. And so, or it's like the example I gave in the end where Alistair realized, okay, I think I'm going to do an investigative blog in order to improve conditions of women who are incarcerated. And then he learned, oh no, actually the best way is to come up with an actual physical magazine. And so that was just me advocating the idea of, okay, be a bit flexible with this. I mean, if you're dead set on a podcast, I'm not going to discourage you from this, but all I'm saying is, well, probably it's not like your typical podcast that you distribute on Spotify. It's probably, I don't know, is it probably something that can be distributed on WhatsApp or in Signal if you want to reach younger audiences? Probably it's something that you can tinker on TikTok or whatever, and just be a bit more open with that.
Well, it's definitely, I'm the podcast guru, by the way. It's a great way to help build community. And I think it's really important, that was mentioned earlier, you have to build your audience. You have to know who you're talking to and reach them where they are, because it may not be the right platform for everyone. Just like so many people are going to video right now, but video might not be the right platform for where you're headed. So
And also not be the right platform that you're comfortable with. I don't mean it to be like, okay, just go whatever is like the newest trade of the day, or like the most fashionable thing today. It's because I would also always advocate, if you're not comfortable with one channel, then just skip it, and there will be an audience also in podcasting. But I think what I mostly want to emphasize with this is, just because something is on vogue doesn't necessarily mean that you should look how to build the best podcast. And probably it's worthwhile to take a step back and wonder, okay, who is this supposed to reach? And are there probably also other ways?
And Start With Why was a great book. That was one of the first books I read of Simon Sinek's. A lot of jewels in there. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Do we have more questions? Anyone else?
There's one question in the chat: what techniques can be used to determine if there's a need? One little trick that can be used, if you're a bit familiar with web design, is that you can allow people to sign up for 3 different newsletters, and you can be upfront about it and say, I'm thinking about launching a new newsletter, and here are 3 ideas. Please sign up. It might be that they won't be ready ASAP, but if you're interested in that topic, I'm also kind of interested in checking whether there's some interest in it. Because I think it can be tricky to ask people whether they are willing to pay money or spend time on whatever it is you have in mind, because very often when you sit in front of them, or even when you email them, they will always say, sure, I will be interested in that. But if that were actually true, then I don't know, PBS would be the most successful television channel that everyone has, because everyone's like, oh yeah, I like PBS and NPR, but the stuff that they're doing is probably also sometimes a bit different. And so, yeah, so I think, yeah, to determine if there's a need, and sometimes what also professional companies do is that they come up with different scenarios where they combine 2 or 3 factors and say, okay, would you rather want to have a really expensive newsletter or a really expensive so-and-so that comes to your house every day and takes an hour, or would you have something that is for free and comes once a month and blah, blah, blah. And then you get ideas for the different variables and how, which of them are a bit more important. Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Period. No.
We're kind of coming up on time here. But I think if anyone else has another question, I'll let that one go. If anyone wants to chime in, otherwise I have some closing remarks. Anyone? Last call. All right. I just want to add to this with a little bit of my insight from EJCP, where Christian, of course, donates his wonderful time and knowledge as a mentor. And I just want to say, like for me, when I went through that course, people would ask me, hey, what's the course about? What's it really like? And I would say, it's really more of a marketing course than a journalism course, if I'm being honest. That course is really teaching you how to reach your audience and be successful. It's not teaching you, like narrative structure and, you know what I mean, things like that. And but that for folks like me who hate the marketing side, it's really important stuff. And one thing that like I kind of knew, but kind of it really sunk in with me is I encourage everyone to think of like any YouTuber or content creator, right? Like we journalists kind of sometimes bristle at that term, content and content creator. but any like YouTube creator, vlogger, content creator, influencer, TikToker, you know, because there's like 16-year-olds with like 1 million followers on TikTok and whatever they're doing, right? And I'm not saying go be like them, but the recipe for success with those people, what they've done is this process that we're describing every time. They've started with like a why, right? And they've found an audience, right? And they've built a brand themselves, and engendered like interest and loyalty from that audience, right? So it starts with the why and the product and the thing, the service, the problem you're solving for someone. But then it also becomes like, hey, I really like this person. You know, if you're doing this completely solo, you are the brand, right? Whether that's a Substack or a vlog or a podcast or whatever, right? So you have to like it starts with the why and the product, but then you kind of have to be that like front facing, engage with your audience and build on that. And one thing that really resonated with me was when they told me, you know, in the EJCP, they're like, you know, some people will subscribe to your Substack for $70 a year, $100 a year, and not even read your content. They'll give you the money because they want to support you, you know, and you're going to have subscribers. You're going to have a chunk of subscribers who fall into that category that like, hey, look, I don't have time to read your newsletter every week, but I love what you're doing and I want you to keep doing it. So I'm going to keep subscribing. So just keep those things in mind. Is that you know, if you're a very introverted person, that might be challenging. The people who are like very front facing and raring to go out there, they tend to be very successful. So just wanted to emphasize that's what we're talking about. We're talking about, you know, the why, the product and the service and the problem you're solving. And then it's like you and consistent engagement, making people feel like they're a part of something is an important component of it as well. So I'll shut up because I feel like I'm rambling now and we're at time. I want to respect everybody's time, and say thank you to everyone for coming. Thank you to Christian and Joan for your wonderful insights, and sharing your knowledge with us. And thank you to Noel and MVJ and everyone who keeps this community going and providing these wonderful services. And hopefully, I hope to see you all in future versions of what we're doing here. So thanks again. And with that, I'll let you all get to your evening. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
All right. Good night.